Magic! Gregtech New Horizons, a match made in heaven, at least to me. In this month's installment of What the Burger Doin', I take a leap headfirst into the most pivotal magic mod in the entirety of Gregtech New Horizons. Thaumcraft. Solving puzzles, making insane tech, getting sucked into a black hole, what could go wrong? If you missed the last episode of my Gregtech run, make sure to go watch them, I will not catch you up. Should have studied for the test. I am Bedrock Burger, your local Destiny 2 died so Marathon could die later kind of guy. Seriously, what is Bungie thinking? Anyways, promotion time! As with all videos, make sure to do what the algorithm enjoys so I can feed the mound of flesh in my closet with digital karma. Also be sure to check out my memberships and Patreon. Both of them get things like early videos right as I finish them, and patrons get exclusive videos and a few other perks. Consider tossing a coin to your local burger, I do appreciate all support. One last thing, the usual disclaimer that these Year 2 episodes will be edited to make a full compilation of Year 2, one big video at the end. I just finished recording the full year and episodes will continue through the end of July, with a supercut planned for August. It's a bit away, but let me cook. Anyways, lengthy intro aside, let's resume my adventure in one of the hardest mod packs out there, and one of the best magic mods out there. On day 130, skipping a few days because literally nothing of note happened for a handful of days, I decided to look for the 3 strongholds on my world. While I couldn't craft Eyes of Ender yet, more on that in a bit, I could still locate them for a very important item that was hidden in some chests, Oblivion Frames, used for bees, which I intended to passively work on throughout the years. These Oblivion Frames were essential to speed up my eugenics project. I mean bee breeding, yeah, that. They cut a bee's lifespan down to Concord-length lives, which was crazy good when combined with bee frames that gave a huge boost to mutation rate. So we get to why I decided to do magic in the first place, to start bees. There are 2 amazing items locked behind Thaumcraft that make bees easier, the Soul Frame and the Thaumic Restorer. There was also a ton of really good stuff from Thaumcraft, so I'd want to do it anyways. There's a few things I needed to do first before I'd get to work. I started by making a forestry carpenter, a crafting station type thing that could make a bunch of forestry things. Some recipes even are faster than the assembler, so it's nice to have. I also made a low voltage cutting machine, as I need to use it to make parts for a beealyzer, a device that could use honey to scan bees to find out traits, how many kids they pop out, what effects they give off, any temperature preferences, and more. I did have a lot more aluminum at this point, so I could spare it for this device. I set up a small area outside my base so I could start breeding. Start the bees breeding. I'm not breeding with the bees, not today at least. Since I had some villagers trading apiaries, I bought some to make the bee sexy time more efficient. These apiaries had slots for frames, unlike the basic bitch bee houses. Never use those, bee houses suck butts. Bee butts. Bee butts. Anyways, I started off trying to breed a few basic bees together. My main goal was to get each bee to have a 4 times productivity rate, using wintery bees as a base for them. You know Punnett squares? That's how bees in this mod pack work. You find traits that you want as dominance, and try to breed out any traits you don't want. Eugenics. You can go very in depth with this, or you can do what I did and just settle on 4x productivity. To get a new species, each time a bee finishes its cycle, it has a chance to mutate. At base, it's pretty low chance, mostly becoming a mix of the parent bees. Things like the Soul Frame or the Maddening Frame of Frenzy, yes, that's an Elden Ring reference, boost mutation rate to get new species. The best way to get a ton of mutations is to combine Oblivion Frames, which turn bee work cycles from about 5 minutes to just 30 seconds, and Soul Frames, which boost mutation rates by 1.5 times. Frenzy Frames do it by 10 times, but they take much longer to get and only have a single durability. Up to you, really. The goal of early bees is to breed all the basic bees all the way up to Imperial and Industrial. I don't get quite up to the Imperial and Industrial this year, but I do get close. I do bees passively over this year, but completely stop bees as I get past the magic part. You'll see why. While my bees bred, I needed some tools. I made a watering can, which does as it says, water stuff. It boosts plant growth in a 3x3 area around you, and would be pretty clutch when I get deeper into magic. As I've said a dozen times, you'll see what I mean. My first use for them was on slimy saplings to make slimy trees so I can get raw rubber dust and glue for more machines, like 2 MV extruders. Why 2? Well, I'd be extruding a lot of stuff, so I'd use 2 and just shove a ton of steel into each of them. All these steel plates and bars would be used for the next pre-magic project, making a bunch of the steam multi-blocks. Centrifuge, macerators, compressor, alloy smelter, and forge hammer. As these are multi-blocks, they can wall share, and oh boy do I wall share the dickens out of these puppies. I made 1 macerator to start, but would later go to 2. I also made the alloy smelter to wall share with these macerators. But why am I making these? Well, these machines are absolute insanity for early game ore processing until you get to the extreme voltage age, which is after high voltage, which is after medium voltage, which medium voltage I am currently on. Like the single block variants, they consume steam to perform operations. The macerator doubles ores, the centrifuge pulls apart impure dust to get pure dust, the forge hammer smashes things like I smash your mom, you get the point. The major benefit to these is the parallels. Each machine can do up to 8 operations at once, a massive speed boost over the single blocks. They have 2 tiers like the steam single blocks too, bronze and steel, but I went right for the steel though, as it doubles the speed. These machines can only do up through low voltage recipes though, so it'll be very worth it to upgrade to the EV tier ones when I can. For now though, until I get those ones, which is a year 3 project, these would be super nice to process all of the ores that I have at a solid rate. I'd make the macerator first, then the alloy smelter, then the compressor, all wall sharing. For the multi-block centrifuge, I decided to make 2 of them, very much abusing the power of wall sharing, to flip one upside down, then merge them together in the center. These 2 machines could also share inputs and outputs, the power of wall sharing. I could also throw the forge hammer on top, but I decided against it. Have you ever had a dream that you had, you would, you could, you do, will, you wants, you could do so, you do want, you could want him to do so, you so much you could do anything? On day 146, I finished up the double centrifuge, then took to upgrading the crossbow I had gotten from a loot bag a bit ago. With some loot from dungeons, I made bolts with vanadium steel, a slime fletching, and a slimy tool rod. Pretty nutty damage too, dealing 14 attack damage per bolt before the crossbow damage. For the crossbow, I did a fiery crossbow string, carbon bow limb, thaumic tool rod, and Damascus steel crossbow body to make one that deals a whopping 56.5 damage. You'll definitely see this in action soon. The first victim of this bow was to be the first boss of the Twilight Forest, the Naga. Changing back whenever I swap them out. Holy shit! Alright. That was just a... Yeah, this crossbow is a bit silly. With the murder of the Naga boss, it starts my foray into magic, as its scales are used for the first wand. For the second wand I need, I would have to kill the Lich next, and fortunately for me, this boss was pretty much all over the place in the Twilight. Remember how I said this crossbow was overpowered? I started streaming this world right as this section of the run started, so here's my live reaction to the Lich. Okay. Oh my... Okay. Lich down, more bosses to go. Mino Shroom. Yeah, that was easy. How about the Hydra? Oh, jeez. Not too bad either. Right. I could have continued onwards, but decided to get back to the Twilight when I really needed materials from it. I needed to progress, time was ticking. Using the Naga scales, I made my first wand, the Iron Capped Wand, made from some iron, aluminum screws, and the scales. Now I get into real magic. On day 153, I needed to go mining, but not for regular ores, for magic ores. Inside the Twilight Forest, there are ore veins with shards from Thaumcraft. I could use Cinnabar in the Ore Finder wand to discover them quicker. Every one of these veins has Cinnabar, but also has 2 out of 6 of the basic shards. So I spent a little bit of my time mining away in the forest, then returned to my home so I can smelt the ores into shards. Perdidio, Ordo, Air, Ignis, Aqua, and Terra shards. 6 types for my yummy spellbook. I don't have a spellbook, but it would be cool. I made a few Thaumcraft tables so I could fully start the mod. 3 total were needed, but first I crafted a Thaumometer, which I could hold to scan anything in the world. As I scanned, I gained research points for Thaumcraft aspects. These aspects were stored in my scribing table, which I'd make next. Scribing table and arcane workbench would be needed for this mod, as well as the Thaumonomicon. The The Thaumonomicon could be found in villages, while the scribing table was made by clicking two tables next to each other with the scribing tools, and the arcane workbench could be made by clicking a table with any wand. With these in hand, I grabbed some scribing tools, some paper, and got to work beginning my research. So here's how research works. The first step is to select which one you want to do inside the Thaumonomicon. Easy enough. You need to have paper and scribing tools in your inventory. Some research is taboo, so completing it gives you an unhealthy dose of warp. Warp ain't good for you if you get a lot of it, so it's best to keep it as low as you can, or else you get free nether stars in the worst way possible. With research in hand, you go to the scribing table and place it into the slot, and you're given a puzzle to complete. The puzzle is actually pretty simple once you get the hang of it. It gives you several Thaumcraft aspects on the board, and your goal is to connect them. To connect them, you need to find what said aspect is made of, or goes into, then connect them in the table that way. For example, the gem-shaped aspect is made from Ordo and Terra, so you'd place either of those next to the gem and it forms a line. To get to the other aspect of the board, repeat that process. Find what an aspect is made of, link its components to the aspect, and make a line to the next one. It's pretty tough to explain, and it actually took me a little bit to figure it out. The first batch of research I did was pretty simple. Get up to the ability to scan containers. Normally with a thermometer you can't scan the interior of chests and stuff, but with this research batch I now could. Commence the scanning! Now we get to a huge slew of research. I had a whole butt ton of essence in my scribing table, so time to lock in. I research Essence of False Life, Magic Frame, Maddening Frame of Frenzy, Healing Frame, Gentle Frame, Sanguis Arthus, Essence of Fickle Permanence, Enchanted Earth, Chocolate Frame, Metabolic Frame, Essence of a Shallow Grave, Essence of Lost Time, Essence of Everlasting Durability, Proven Frame, Restraint Frame, Soul Frame, Red Crystal, Remote Comparator, Hungry Chest, Greedy Chest, Thirsty Tank, Enchanted Fabric, Goggles of Revealing, Paving Stone of Travel, Night Tour, Arcane Lamp, Magical Metallurgy, Elementum, Essentia Distillation, Essentia Tubes, Essential Crystallation, Advanced Essentia Tubes, Thaumium, Reinforced Jars, Alchemical Centrifuge, Automatic Alchemy, Void Jar, and finish for now. If you paid any attention, you saw that I did some notable things: the Soul Frame and the Thirsty Tank. Soul Frame for bees, and the Thirsty Tank to help with a few other things, like cauldron crafting, which I get to soon. Small distraction time. In between years 1 and 2, I actually watched a bunch of videos on Gregtech and learned a few things. One thing I learned was that Wizard Tower dungeons had an enchantment table, and I had found a Wizard Tower during year 1, so I went and nabbed a free enchantment table. Simple as. Normally you're supposed to get these later in Thaumcraft progression and in the high voltage age, but the devs kept this free one here for a little progression skip. When I returned home, I put the enchantment table away and didn't actually touch it for another 100 days or so. Didn't really need it, honestly. To return to more Thaumcraft, I placed a vanilla cauldron on a heat source, then smacked it with my wand to turn it into a crucible. The crucible was actually pretty simple. Throw items into the cauldron to burn them into their essentia types, then toss in another item to consume said essentia and convert it into a new item. It can leak if you overdo what you toss in, but you can just solve that by putting some frame blocks over the edges, or shift right click the cauldron with your wand to clear it. To make early Thaumcraft progression much easier and smooth for the early grind, I did some more research, then used the crucible to craft primal shrooms. Probably the best thing I could have crafted this early. These shrooms, when planted, could grow and then be broken to produce vis, aka wand juice. Each wand has a capacity of wand juice or vis, and you consume them to craft things. I could use the watering can I made earlier to grow them faster. No sapping or nodes for me. That's another way to get vis. The vis is important to do crafting in the arcane work table, as things made there cost vis to finish the craft. I will forever refer to vis as wand juice for now. Soul frames, for instance, cost 1 juice to craft in the work table, hence the primal shrooms. The next craft I did after the shrooms was a thirsty tank. This tank slurped up whatever was below it and could move fluids. Not 100% sure how it worked, honestly, but I could place it above a water source block and it would slurp up the water, where I could then pump it into my crucible. Saves me having to refill it constantly as this source is infinite. I went back to the crucible crafting and... Anyways, after remaking my wand, I resumed crucible crafting to make more primal shrooms, up to 9 total. To help with the growth, I made fertilized dirt. It's like regular dirt, but fertilized. It grows plants faster. Combined with a watering can, my shroom growth was much faster. I also made some arcane lamps, which could create artificial lights in a pretty nice radius around it. These lights were invisible and had no hitbox or collision, so it was basically just mob proofing. Gonna totally spam these over time. To get back to a bit of MV progression, I made a few more gas turbines to add to my MV machine area, then made an advanced arc furnace. This machine could melt down a lot of things into their base materials or use oxygen to make new stuff. The two most important things at this stage of progression are annealed copper and glass. Both use oxygen to smelt. The big thing about the arc furnace is that it consumes 3 amps of power to work, so the equivalent of 3 generators. I threw a ton of sand into it and let it ride. I'll come back to the glass later. For my new Thaumcraft hut, I crafted 2 elevators to get up and down from where I'd put my infusion setup. These elevators let you crouch or jump to go up and down. They don't use power, so they're super helpful. Resuming Thaumcraft, I used a few gold ingots to craft new caps for my wand, gold caps. These increased the capacity of my wand and gave a slight discount when crafting with the arcane work table. Also very needed for progression, as wand juice costs quickly go past the default cap. I made an MV mixer for later, then got to work on a new wand as I needed an upgrade. The new core for my new wand was made of greatwood, although I had to restart from iron caps for this next one. One important thing to note is that when I was in the Lich Tower, I looted the chest and found a stainless steel ingot, as this material is normally made towards the end of MV, but Lich Towers could contain a very low amount of this ingot. Stainless steel screws went into the new wand, so I was progression skipping a bit. I do a big progression skip soon, one that's no longer possible in the newer versions, but you'll see. With the crucible, I turned iron ingots into thaumium ingots as I wanted to use it to make a few more things, like a spinning table. Weirdly enough, I wouldn't actually use this table very much, but I had it. The next big task was to make a primal charm. I used the crucible to make balance shards, which took all types of shards into the crucible, and used an alloy smelter to make rose gold, then made a ton of crystal clusters to make myself a primal charm. This item occasionally dropped a single piece of wand juice at your feet to charge your wand, and was used for multiple huge crafts in Thaumcraft, and the quest gave you a second one. I'd used the first one to make a gold banded scepter, which was just a wand with a much higher wand juice capacity. This scepter all but replaced my wand entirely in crafting, as I went from 25 for the base wand to 50 for the other wand with greatwood, up to 75 wand juice capacity for this one. I'd use the wand later on, but for an entirely different purpose from crafting. To make my life easier, I crafted Goggles of Revealing. This equipment allowed me to see any Thaumcraft nodes from a long distance, and it could have slots where I could put lenses, which gave me buffs like night vision, or scanning when looking at something. Lenses later, first, the basic goggles. As usual, after doing one thing, I went to do a side quest. This side quest was first to make an MV laser engraver, then some solar grade silicon, which I need a ton of later in MV and into HV. Fortunately for me, this process only took 2 LV chemical reactors. The process was simple: input silicon and a bit of hydrochloric acid, and get solar grade silicon out, recycling the hydrochloric acid. Do I remember how I did this? Of course I don't. I made this like 5 months ago. I made a ruby lens, as is needed for a lens and an MV laser engraver to make arcane brick blocks. I then made an alchemical furnace and arcane alembic. These worked similar to the crucible, where it could melt down items into the essentia. I could then either pipe the essentia out or click the alembic with a jar. I never figured out how the Thaumcraft pipes worked, so I just clicked the jars. Back to a side quest. The amount of times I do that is insane. Tool upgrades. In the extruder, I put a bit of vanadium steel and a hammerhead mold into the extruder to make a new hammerhead in 25 minutes. Yep. While this head cooked, I started to replace a bunch of my regular sized potent pipes with large potent pipes, which went from 6,000 liters per second to 12,000 liters per second. Necessary upgrade for my new shiny steam multi-blocks, as using multiple at once went way over 6,000 steam per second. After doing so, I grabbed my hammerhead and upgraded my hammer. The durability went way through the roof with just vanadium steel. It's very nice. I know, I could get indestructible ones, I just didn't feel like doing the ritual, okay? For more side quests, on day 191, I needed more aluminum, so I decided to absolutely obliterate the mesa near me for the stained clay. The stained clay could be macerated in my new fancy macerator into clay dust, then electrolyzed into alumina dust and a couple of other things. Combined with cryolite dust in the EBF, it made aluminum! So I also mined out a couple of cryolite veins just to be sure. I'd use the cryolite eventually, as it's needed for fluorine, but for now, aluminum. As it smelted, I went to find the other 2 strongholds in my world for Oblivion frames. I did find more, fortunately, but honestly I only needed 1 Oblivion frame total, so there's not really a reason for me to find the other ones, but I did. On day 200, I started to work on a new project in Magic, the electric goggles of Revealing and the electric boots of the Traveler. But Boko, you can't get infusion into high voltage chemical reactors, I hear your silly voice saying. Fear not, my dear viewers, for I have a progression skip. I sorta alluded to it earlier with my hunts for strongholds, but remember that this world was made in GTNH version 2.7.4, so there was a progression skip that hadn't yet been patched out. The skip is to get Eyes of Ender before HV, and the method is simple. Villagers. Back in 1.7 vanilla Minecraft, cleric villagers could sell Eyes of Ender, and lucky for me, I had obtained one of these villagers. When GTNH version 2.8 released, they patched the skip out, but they didn't remove any existing villagers with this trade, so I had a nice little progression skip to get myself infusion a whole age earlier. The electric goggles of Revealing didn't require infusion to craft, but the boots and all lenses for the goggles did. For yet another side quest, I made an MV wire mill, as I needed a bunch of string for enchanted fabric in Thumbcraft. How did I get a ton of string? By making polycaprolactam ingots made from saltpeter and naphtha in a chemical reactor. These ingots could be put in an MV wire mill to make 32 string per ingot. So after making a stack of polycaprolactam, I was very set on string for a while. Feels good. With the string, I made into enchanted fabric on day 204, then made cloth caps for my scepter, giving it a better discount on crafting. With it, I used an Eye of Ender to make a runic matrix, then right-clicked with my wand to create an infusion altar, used for infusion crafting. To explain how it works, you needed jars of essentia nearby and a certain level of stability for recipes to craft. To get stability, you just place a bunch of blocks around it. There are certain blocks that give stability. Mob heads, some type of blocks, and more. They do need to be symmetrical though. If a recipe isn't stable, bad stuff can happen. I don't want to find out what the bad stuff is, honestly. On pedestals, you place the needed materials for the craft, then right-click with the wand on the runic matrix to begin the craft. I killed a wither, then you know the drill. I did a side quest. Back to bees, I crafted some soul frames to help with mutation, then did a ton of breeding with an Oblivion frame and a soul frame. Massive speed and high mutation rate gave me a cultivated queen, which is one of the starter bee breeds I needed. That's all for bees for now, come again. For the last side quest for now, I redid my polyethylene setup as seen in this video here. Took about 30 minutes to do so, so it wasn't too bad. Back to magic, I made some ancient cobblestone to get my stability for my infusion altar higher. The electric boots of the Traveler needed 10 total stability, so I needed a ton. I used an altar when it was at 2 stability to make a lens for my goggles of Revealing, the Illumined lens. These lenses, when slotted into my goggles, gave me permanent night vision. Loved this, I will never take these off except to charge and to upgrade to the next ones. With some iron frame greatwood, I got my stability all the way up to 10, then got to work on the boots of the Traveler. all the way on day 218. I finished up the base boots of the Traveler, but I wanted the electric ones. The base ones gave a speed boost, but it wasn't enough. The issue I was running into was that getting Essentia into jars was slow as balls, but one of my stream viewers let me know of a really helpful item in Thumbcraft, the Disintegration Focus. To get this, a few steps. To help completely remove crucible crafting from the equation, I made an alchemical construct out of a crucible and 2 alchemical construct blocks. This Thumbcraft multi-block could accept Essentia through pipes and just make things that are normally made in the crucible. No water needed and no tossing crap into the cauldron. Much easier. With it, I made some liquid death, then made the Disintegration Focus, slotting it into my old wand. The second one I made, not the first one. The Disintegration Focus was incredible. I could throw items onto the ground, then eat a small amount of wand juice to just zap items, breaking them down into their Essentia. I did still have to stick them into Alembic and put them in the jars afterwards though. Still have no idea how Thumbcraft pipes works, and the Google Doc on them is totally nonsensical to my burger brain. With enough Essentia in jars, I began the ritual to craft the electric boots of the Traveler. These boots are incredible, a massive upgrade over piston boots, giving me a speed boost up to double speed, a jump boost to replace the piston boots, and they were unbreakable, just needing to be recharged every so often. I wouldn't take these off ever until I got the nanosuit, but that's a ways off and I don't actually get the nanosuit in year 2. I also went ahead and made the Mantle of the Raven, a cloak that didn't use an armor or inventory slot, just a curio slot, and allowed me to hit a hotkey to toggle on or off a nice glide. Yes, the speed boost from the boots and this glide do stack. It even stacks with a glider, but I never made the glider. Only 2 things left to finally round out this spurt of magic progression that I do for the entirety of year 2, the Thaumic Restorer and the Thermostatic Harness. For the Restorer, it just took a bunch of random plates and a Thaumium block in the Infusion Altar. Pretty simple. The Restorer was essential to my future B progression as it used Instrumentum Essentia to repair items from it. Not every item could be repaired, but Oblivion and Soulframes could. If only I actually worked on more Bs after this. I skipped a bunch in my script, but for Bs, by the end of this section, I did obtain Common, Cultivated, Sorceress, Noble, Unwary, and Diligent over the course of this section. Bs are more of a year 3 thing in my mind, honestly. For the final thing for this magic progression for now, I started to work on a Thermostatic Harness, my first gateway to creative flight. I needed to make a ton of random pipes, a bunch of Essentia, and get a lot of random nonsense to make this harness, but on day 229 I started the craft, and obtained myself the harness. This harness worked similar to a jetpack, but with hover always on. I could hit a hotkey to activate it, then fly up or down pretty slowly unless I made the girdle for it, which I never did. For fuel, it uses Potentia Essentia as it ran. You could shove a jar into its internal inventory and fly! All this equipment made with my magical progression will be insanely nice to have for the long haul as they remain equipped, and frankly I don't intend to take them off unless I'm upgrading or charging them. The next major project for this run loomed on the horizon, as I didn't really feel like continuing magic for longer. My next major goal was the moon. As of this point, I had 130 days left. Can I do it? You'll have to find out as this wraps up this episode of Gregtech New Horizons Year 2. In the next episode, I go for the next age, High Voltage. I hope to see you there. Thank you all for coming and watching. Bedrock Burger, out.